God and God's Son Jesus Christ bless you all. Being Christian do not mean to be ignorant and uninformed. Information is power, information is help and guidance. I was reading what a Greek Orthodox Christian priest told and preached about. Quote, Christ never had imagination. For this I could be defeated by Satan. End quote. He said, so let's think. Jesus Christ, the Son of God. God who created everything, the seen and unseen, he do not had imagination, so he the priest said. Jesus Christ was with not thinking, just an empty shell kind of, like maybe a computer with no software in it, an empty hardware. Yes, it is true, cannot have viruses, no program, no hack, cannot be hacked by hackers, or in this case, the soul's hacker Satan. The Greek Orthodox Christian priest, with all due respect, but he might not see it, but is very misleading and can be confusing, considering Jesus Christ with no imagination, so by default being like that, limited was no defeated, by Satan. What about recognizing and admitting, he was God's Son and he had a set of abilities probably well above normal or mundane, and also he prepared for challenges, preparedness, what he was teaching and showing in personal life to his disciples and followers. So the priest continued. When fasting voluntarily and grace of God, the stations that easy. Keep him 1 day, 2, 3, 4, 9 and even a whole post. When you do not have the grace of God, in addition to abstaining from food, God and Satan works goadying that your senses to sniff out a hunger crazy, kind of struggle stomach, kind of unwillingness to temperance. I mean self-love, so much passion ignites in man that hungry state becomes unmanageable. Christ had not imagination. For he could not be defeated by Satan. I could not penetrate the thoughts ever, so that Christ said, I and the Father are one, John 10:30. So no one penetrate the mystery of God, never. And how the devil tried to tempt him, Jesus, causing him. Then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. And approaching the tempter said, Thou Son God, command that these stones be made bread. But he answered and said, It is written, No man lives by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Matthew 4:1.11. So we can raise the word we learn from St. Mark, Talitha Kumi, child, I say to you, arise. And raised the child. Mark says that it all took off and walk around the room. And Luke says that said, let them eat, that is life. And if real feel this truth, tell psalmist, your hands have made me and builded, PS 118:73. Your hands, that the Father, Son and Holy Spirit. I shouted to those who died as they heard him, Lazarus, come out. And another example is the resurrection of the son of the widow of Nain, young man, I say to you, arise. We need to establish exactly what is imagination and examine character and her motives. St. John of the Ladder defines imagination as follows: imagination is delusion in thinking, sleepy eyes. Imagination is the ecstasy of the mind, the body in the waking. Imagination is contemplation unfounded. We must make a clear distinction. One thing and another imaginary imagination. Imaginary soul is natural potency, while activating the imagination is imaginary. Imaginary is between mind and feeling. There is no clear mind work, but no work senses. Palama St. Gregory writes, and this imaginary soul, the rational being, becomes the boundary of mind and feeling. Do not believe it ever the devil, even when you leads you to something useful, because it begins and ends with the need evil. Do not do the will of demons, neither hungry nor the other missing, but run to God. And, end of quote. So thinking about what was said by the priest, mentioning that Jesus Christ is one with God his Father, it can be confusing or not correct, lacking imagination. If Jesus do not had God would not have it either. And mentioning that fasting without grace of God, it can be told but how to recognize that blessing, because is not easy. What we can do to start with good intention fast and pray, we do not have some kind of pre-approving for it, then mentioning that God and Satan, always is a strange vibe in it. God and Satan work together to sniff out hungry stomachs. What? God will not sniff it out himself? He really needs Satan on the side. And this will not confuse nobody. Is not imagination what God had to create everything what's around us? Imagination is not what create progress. Or all is just a big sin? Is not the stomach was designed, imagined and created by God? It has a clear purpose, very functional, but can be maybe a faith measuring tool too. Also God imagined and created in it maybe predetermined nervous system, and acidic environment, because they are people more or less able to fast 40 days, so who can do it will be more accepted by God. Some scientists are explaining how dependent we all are on our internal bacterial flora, mentioning that highly probable was imagined and created by God. Also the priests do not mention what harm can do. Prescription medications, genetically modified foods, pesticides, industrial chemicals in water that we drink, fluoride and chlorine that is dumped in water. All this have bad effect on us, on our bodies, and yes, our stomachs, our immune system and probably our psyche. The priests do not mention this, they are scared for losing funds or just have narrow vision. Priests also do not mention that in Jesus Christ's time, food, crops, water and air, do not had this pollutants and poisoned in it, so was naturally better processed by human body. I do not believe God approved all this. But it is happening all over and exponentially. It is Satan's work, considering the so-called side effects, and so-called collateral damages. When Jesus Christ was given examples about good behaviors and bad ones, he was using his imagination, or not. It can be useful to think in department about what action and behavior can be accepted and blessed by God. What do you think? Thank you for listen. God and his Son Jesus Christ bless you all. God and God's Son Jesus Christ